This is Channel 9 Eyewitness News at 5. Coverage you can count on.
It will be hard to forget the brutal terror attack at Pulse nightclub. On June 12, 2016, a one-man arsenal put ordinary people and first responders in incredible danger.
I mean, you were like, come on, we have to go. And they just stared at you blankly.
And when the chaos cleared, Orlando lost 49 neighbors that night. Now a year has passed, and the community is healing.
After Pulse, me and my mom actually became really close.
Learning and making changes for the better. Live tonight on Eyewitness News at 5, a special presentation continues of Pulse 1 year later. We are 1 hour into 5 hours of extensive live team coverage that is taking a close look at how our community has changed since the Pulse terror attack. Good evening. I'm Martha Sagowski.
And I'm Greg Wormuth. We're live outside Lake Eola right now. We're updating the attack investigation in this hour and the unusual mission state agents had that night. Plus, we talk live right here with Police Chief John Mina about whether Orlando is safer than a year ago. And we're also checking in on the victims' families, survivors, first responders, and the community as a whole as the healing continues again 1 year after the Pulse terror attack.
Channel 9's Nancy Alvarez and George Estevez are live at the bandshell on Lake Eola. And George, we're just 2 hours away from another major ceremony. It's going to be emotional for so many people.
So emotional. Nancy and I are out here. We're at the band show. We're across the street from where you guys are. And Nancy, the crowd's building.
It is. It's building so far. The rain has stayed away. You may see some sprinkles.
Yes.
That was a little thunder, but it's not bad. It's not that bad. So if you're thinking about whether or not to come. We're ready for you. Of course, bring your umbrella. But this crowd is just full of love. I've lost count of the hugs already.
So many hugs and people coming up and saying hello and everyone to each other. It is incredible. So if you come down here, right, you still have plenty of time to make a decision. You're going to see people on stage. Weeks of rehearsals. Pouring their hearts out. Unlike last year, we had time to prepare, and this is for the families, for the survivors, and it is incredible the amount of people here in our own town that put together these performances.
A message of hope from the Orlando Gay Chorus.
It's hard to take courage in a world full of people.
Its director choosing to perform true colors.
It's just, how do we honor those that we've lost, and how do we embrace the people that are still here?
Wanna see your true colors shine and prove.
And for many victims' families, it will be their first time attending such a ceremony.
Leroy Fernandez.
The grief was too fresh last time when 50,000 people gathered around Lake Eola a week after the tragedy. Commissioner Patty Sheehan is helping organize this year's event.
This is really for them to see kind of what happened when they couldn't participate and to see that love.
It's Saturday morning in Orlando, June 11th, 2016.
Another performance piece will be O-Town, Voices from Orlando. It takes the audience on a tour of Orlando the day before the shooting.
The Sunrail has just gone by back over there behind the Pulse nightclub. It's going to be Latin night tonight.
It describes the Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts.
That large green lawn in front of it will soon become a makeshift memorial with thousands of flowers and words of remembrances and messages from all over the world.
I see your true colors.
The entire night will be filled with emotions that everyone, including Terry DiCarlo of the center, hopes will send a message to the world.
That Orlando is still standing together. We are one community. If we can do it here in Orlando and watch that resonate around the world, can you imagine how beautiful that would be?
Just imagine how beautiful it would be. So go ahead, come down here and show the world how we are Orlando United. Nancy.
And there are a lot of things waiting for you here that are so beautiful. One of them is this mural that is behind us. This was put together here just within the last hour or so. You can sort of see the seams and the nails here of where they put it together. We asked our photographer, Carrie, to kind of walk with me so I can show it to you. The faces of the victims are here in these hearts. There are survivors on here, community leaders. You may recognize Commissioner Patty Sheehan right there giving somebody a hug. And this goes on all the way down there, almost toward Rosalind. And it is absolutely beautiful and something you definitely want to see if you come down here. George?
And Nancy, guys, come over here. This actual mural was created with the help of volunteers in response to what happened. It is a work in progress, unfinished, and it represents a larger mural to come under the artistic direction of Michael Pilato and Yuri Karabash. So truly just incredible, the amount of people that have worked to put this event together.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. And we'll be here to show it all to you until the event starts at 7 p.m. Then we'll be up there on the stage, and we'll be bringing that to you live as well. Back to you, Greg and Martha.
And last year, when you all put that together, it was a quick memorial service that you put together on the stage. But this year, it's much more produced, much more singing, less talking. Talk about the production of this, George.
I mean, Nancy, do you remember the three, 20-something-year-olds?
It was thrown together at the last minute, word of mouth, Facebook, Twitter, and then the next thing we knew, we looked on both sides of us, and there were 50,000 people around Lake Eola.
We knew we were going to carry it live and put it on our WFTV.com page, but we had no idea the impact we were going to have. When they lit those candles, when we were reading the names last year, it was chilling. Yeah. You could hear a pin drop, but we came together last year, and we're going to do it again now. By the way, if you're coming down here, there's security in place. We're going to talk about that the next time we join you at 5:30, and we're going to show people the effort to keep this area safe.
Yes, that's right. And, of course, the organizers calling this a labor of love, and it certainly is. Back to you guys.
And I think, we can certainly highlight this. In the beginning, after this happened, there was some concern that United Strong, United Orlando might just be a catchphrase and might disappear over time. But I think, George and Nancy, we can clearly see that we are United Strong. It's not just a catchphrase here. We are one pulse. And clearly today, by seeing the production and the murals and the effort that has gone into remembering the 49 people who are no longer with us.
It is beautiful. We'll join Nancy and George on stage live, full coverage here on Channel 9. That is at 7 o'clock.
And we aired one major ceremony from Pulse nightclub live already just before lunchtime. And now Channel 9's Michael Lepardi talked with many of the people who came out and visited Pulse today to pay their respects.
And Michael, you talked with a woman who called many of the victims friends here.
Greg and Martha, that woman was just listing off the names of people that she knew. Other people showed up here today. They didn't know any of the victims, but still wanted to remember them.
Leroy Valentin Fernandez, Eddie Jamal Droy Justice.
Behind this fence at Pulse, a small ceremony honored the 49 victims exactly 1 year later.
Today marks a year from the darkest moment of my life.
But it was out front where we learned more about them from the people who knew them best.
It's brought the community together closer. We're more watchful. There's more love. There's more warmth and more sympathy and care.
Estella Peterkin says she was friends with several people who spent their final moments here.
My heart just goes out, and I just not enough words to really say what I want to say, but it's coming from the heart.
Today, the crowd of visitors swelled into the hundreds. People hugged and cried and remembered.
I received a call from my daughter. She was here. 2 of her friends were shot. She called me down here. She didn't want to tell me what was going on.
Orlando firefighter Benino Sevilla is here today because his daughter Jackie couldn't be. She survived the shooting but died about 2 weeks ago in a car crash.
It hit us very hard, really hard. But we have hope that we're going to see her again.
Until then, her father expects nothing but support from the community. Visitors told us the tragedy changed Orlando for the better.
We still love them, and we still care, and we will always remember them. They will never be forgotten.
And today, Orlando's mayor says getting in front of all those television cameras and a national audience to tell everyone that Orlando was the site of the worst mass shooting in modern U.S. history was the toughest moment in his professional career. Greg and Martha.
Michael, thank you. A bike officer patrolling in downtown Orlando was among those who rushed to the Pulse nightclub when that 911 call first.
What you see I'm wearing right now.
Darlene Jones listened to his heroic account as he describes rushing in, again, without hesitation, even though he wasn't wearing heavy body armor to protect himself.
What you see I'm wearing right now, just a light vest, and that's it. And just my, what's on my my utility belt.
Graham Cage knew then and now he wasn't physically prepared to get into a gunfight with a terrorist.
I had a helmet, but a bicycle helmet. It's not going to do a whole lot with that.
The Orlando police officer still rushed to Pulse nightclub on his department-issued bike and immediately ran inside of the club, even though he could hear gunfire from inside. He still remembers the fear he felt of not knowing where the shooter was inside of that club.
Roger, what I need from you is a triage team. Get together 4 to 5 people. The people that can't walk in here, we need to start pulling them out right now. I also need somebody on the phone at HRC. This is full SWAT. Immediately.
So we were thinking that there may be someone, either he's wounded himself, he's hiding, he's waiting for us to go around a corner and maybe open fire on us. So that was probably the most heart-pounding aspect of the whole situation, at least for me.
His heart pounding, Cage continued to make his way through the building, saving victims. Some already shot and others crammed into the tiniest of spaces, waiting to be rescued.
They seem to be in shock. They're just, I mean, you were like, come on, we have to go. And they just stared at you blankly. And it was to the point where we actually had to walk into where they were and grab them and just physically pick them up and get them out of there.
He won't tell you this, but that's exactly why so many people survived, because he and others in law enforcement put their lives at risk. And even then, his work wasn't done.
I was in there until SWAT relieved me. I want to say probably about 4 hours, about 6 in the morning, I think.
Now get this, he was in there for about 4 hours. During that time is when family members were calling their loved ones, hoping someone would answer. Officer Cage had to hear those cell phones ringing all of that time. Imagine mentally how that impacts someone. Reporting in the studio, Darlene Jones, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Just the bravery of that one officer, and think of how many other officers and first responders and fire crews that went to that scene not knowing what they were going to be facing, risking their own lives that night.
Very brave. And of course, those haunting images of the cell phones going off, the disco ball lights still playing, and they even described the unfortunate sloshing of blood on the floor. There was so much blood on that floor. We're going to continue honoring the victims who were taken too soon, 1 day, 1 year ago today. And we'll continue our live coverage both here at Lake Eola, and you're looking live at the Pulse nightclub. What a year it has been for Orlando Strong. We'll be right back with Orlando Police Chief John Mina. A special edition of Eyewitness News at 5 continues in 2 minutes. Still to come at 5.
My thing is, like, how am I going to save this? Because I have to say it. I know I have to say it. It's my job to say it.
The unforgettable Pulse assignment that changed the lives of some state agents. And he's a police chief, a father, and a key leader during Pulse. Orlando's Chief John Mina will sit down with us live to discuss the attack and what's changed in the year after.
This is Orlando Police Chief John Mina. He was one of 25 Pulse survivors and first responders who participated in a project for the Dear World organization where people tell their personal stories, writing on their skin, on the chief's arms, as you can see, the words, "I got a text from my son, Dad, are you all right?" And so much has changed for Chief John Mina since that night.
So, Chief Mina, as you are here 1 year later, first of all, go back to that night when you first got the phone call that we had an issue at Pulse.
Well, obviously, right after 2 in the morning, I get the phone call, and at that point, I was just told that there was a shooting. It was serious. We had multiple victims, and at a nightclub. Remember, we were just coming off the Christine and Grimmy case, and I was thinking to myself, you know, not again, and didn't realize how devastating it would be until I got to the scene and saw all the first responders.
And since that time, Chief, how has the community reacted to you? What do people tell you following you and your team getting us through that tragic event? What do people tell you?
We have received some great support and love from our community, and I think our community always realize the incredibly tough job our first responders have, but to see the officers who went in there almost losing their life for strangers really hit home and just showed that great strength and support from the community, which we appreciate more than you can ever imagine.
What is your reaction to our 9 Investigate story that reported just a little while ago this evening that your officers have not been cleared? How upsetting is that?
It's not that upsetting because I know in my heart that they're justified. They did the right thing. They basically went toe-to-toe with the worst mass shooter in U.S. history and won. And, you know, in the end, they'll be vindicated. And, you know, unfortunately, it does take a little bit of time. There's lots of evidence to go through. And there is a process. They understand that. But I'm sure there'll be a huge weight lifted off their shoulders when it's done.
You've been in law enforcement, what, 26 years? You have a lot of years underneath your belt. You've always been very even keel, not too emotional type of guy. But seeing that picture with the words that was written on you that said, "I got a text from my son, Dad, are you okay?" What was that all about?
Yeah, so one of the first visuals at the Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center, obviously you guys carried that live, and I was up on stage, and I just remember looking over the crowd of people, and I was emotional. I was physically and emotionally drained and exhausted, and so my son saw that in my face, and so he sent me that text. He's like, "Dad, are you okay?" And I lost it on the way home, I think. And yeah, it's just, and there's so many stories from our officers of the same thing. Their mothers texting them, their grandmothers saying, "Hey, we just want to make sure you're okay," much like the survivors and victims.
So at some point it did get to you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very overwhelming few days and weeks, and it really did. I got emotional.
I know that we have to wait for the investigation to be completed, but on behalf of Central Florida, to all your officers, so brave, going in that night, not knowing what they were going to experience, and seeing, of course, that body cam video, I want to thank you and your team. And again, thank you for coming up here. I know it's been a difficult year, but thank you, Chief Mina, for leading us through that.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Glad you're here.
Orlando Police Chief John Mina. We hear some thunder out there.
Yeah,
Let's check on our forecast,
a little bit of rain, too.
right?
Tom Terry, I thought you were going to be keeping this away.
Oh, I am. There's no lightning nearby, but we've had a lot of rain and storms just on the west side of Metro Orlando. Let me pull this full screen, and you can see the heavy downpours right now just on the west side of downtown Orlando. We continue to watch, obviously, with a lot of folks, thousands, in fact, out in downtown Orlando attending our Pulse observance. Right now we have Ocoee, Windermere. That's the closest lightning we have to downtown, although you can hear thunder about 10 miles away from a lightning strike. So you're probably still going to hear a little bit of thunder. We still have light rain. Here's Pulse. Here's Lake Eola. Still have showers, so prepare for that as you head out and around tonight. Right now the storms are to the west and continue to slowly push their way toward the west. Windermere, Ocoee, all the way through the Oakland area. So we're going to keep close close tabs on that. We've had some showers near Celebration. Sometimes these can kind of back build a little bit, but right now all I'm expecting is some rainfall for downtown Orlando. Here's Heathrow up towards Sanford, still some rain. Daytona, still some rain. Future Track did a good job on this earlier. You can see scattered storms by 5:15 on our western front, slowly pushing away and south, but still showers just kind of working their way back in across Metro Orlando, probably through at least 8 o'clock tonight. So it's going to be one of these soggy evenings. We can keep the lightning away. That's the important part right now. So still a few scattered storms around west and south through 6 p.m. tonight, and then showers start to gradually taper off through 8 p.m. tonight. Good source, of course, our free WFTV weather app, and keep track. It will also send you lightning alerts to your mobile device if lightning gets within 8 miles of your location. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be hit by lightning or affected directly, just shows you that it's close by. Here's satellite and radar, still very moist environment. And for tomorrow, once again, scattered showers and storms in the afternoon, locally heavy Sanford, all the way moving toward Ocala during the evening hours. Here's your 5-day forecast. The weekend always in view, holding with a relatively high 60% storm coverage for tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, all the way through Friday, including the switch prompter, Toddy, all the way through the upcoming weekends. We've got rain and storms all the way through this upcoming weekend. Now, there are many ways people have paid tribute to the people who died at Pulse 1 year ago. Next, we're looking at some of those unique tributes tonight. Our special live team coverage of Pulse 1 year later continues in less than 3 minutes.
You are looking live once again at the Pulse nightclub, which looks very different on this gloomy day than it did 1 year ago when we were reeling from the attack on our city.
Light rain falling over Lake Eola and Pulse right now, almost fitting on this night. And you can see the video from June 2016. It is on the right of your screen there. So many patrol cars and first responders packed in just a small area really, as we mentioned earlier, risking their lives to save others.
And shortly after the attack, the phrases Orlando Strong and Orlando United quickly spread across our city.
They are very fitting, and now a year later, Channel 9's Raquel Asa found several people around town who tried to add a little light and color to some of Orlando's darkest days.
Their colors are as crisp as the memories from that day.
I'll never forget that Sunday morning.
They are the murals.
Same feelings coming back.
That bring light to a city that needed to be reminded that we are strong, united, and loved.
Trying to make some solace for people, you know, sitting at a light, kind of faded out.
Artist Andrew Spear.
It's the same paint from last year.
Wants to make sure his mural's message is as vivid as the day that changed our city 1 year ago.
If this brings them a better memory, you know, by all means, that's actually what it means. There we go.
It's those memories and feelings.
Any second I could end up crying.
That are often expressed by the colors on canvases.
I'll use like a lot of my reds and my blues.
Smallburgers are captured in this 3x4 canvas. It's one of dozens that will soon fill the wall at the Orange County Public Library. Until next month.
I think we stand for each other best when we express ourselves. That's this town.
Which we'll never forget.
God bless America.
Or give up.
We can't lose.
Raquel Asa, Channel 9.
It's called Strength in Numbers.
Eyewitness News.
Just an amazing story. Again, through art, so healing. It's such a healing thing for good artists and those maybe not so talented. There are still so many news stories that you haven't heard about Pulse as we reflect on what happened in Orlando June 12, 2016, and what's happened this past year.
Next, the unforgettable Pulse assignment that changed the lives of some agents. Taken today across the city. Ahead, how Orlando's residents are remembering Pulse 1 year later.
And a live look over Orlando as we continue to get set for tonight's ceremony at 7 o'clock at Lake Eola.
Can you hear us, Moya? Moya Johnson. Can we go on sticks?
Mic check.
Oh, thank
1, 2,
you. That's
3,
your
4,
stabbing me with the
5.
umbrella.
Sorry. 1, 2, 3. Mic check. Okay.
Can we go with
All right,
sticks
so-
up?
This is Channel 9 Eyewitness News at 5:30. Coverage you can count on.
1 year ago today, the terror and tragedy of the Pulse terror attack struck Orlando. And it would affect so many people in so many different ways, stirring emotions in state agents who opened up to 9 Investigates for the first time.
I don't think I talked about this with anyone else.
Now at 5:30, why they say they will never forget one job they had to do after the attack, as our special presentation of Pulse 1 year later continues here on Eyewitness News. For local first responders, the Pulse terror attack was unlike anything they had ever dealt with, obviously, and they don't want to deal with it ever again. But the Florida Department of Law Enforcement might have had really the toughest assignments.
Yeah, that state agency was responsible for notifying family members that their loved ones had died at Pulse. And for the very first time, they are sharing their story with Darlene Jones.
This certainly was not an easy assignment because these agents didn't want to share their stories. They didn't want to be a story, but we convinced them it is important for the community to know the critical role they all played.
Jose Ramirez was part of a team of 7, each grouped with a victim advocate and a chaplain responsible for notifying all 49 families that their loved ones were among those who did not make it.
I'm getting not to my stomach just thinking about what you had to do.
My thing is how am I gonna say this? Because I have to say it. I know I have to say it. It's my job to say it.
What did they say to you?
It was no words at the beginning. There was disbelief first, that switched to crying, then to anger, back to disbelief. It was confusing because I did not know what to say.
We can't take our camera inside, but here at the Hampton Inn near Orlando Regional Medical Center is where the families were all gathered that day. The lobby here is small, but it was packed beyond capacity that day. One by one, the families were taken to the second floor to receive notification they would never see their loved ones again.
I mean, as soon as they got notified to come, they just started breaking down, and it was like that was the notification because they figured out if you're going up to the second floor, it's not good.
Jason Kriegsman was in charge of putting the notification system in place, something he referred to as organized chaos. We spent nearly an hour with both men individually, and this is about as close as either of them came to sharing the emotion they felt that day. The moment when they had to watch those families hear the names of those who survived.
So they read from a list of injured, and still over 200 people are behind, and the list ended. That's it. It was that moment I will never forget.
Their focus then and now was on the families.
I don't think I talked about this with anyone else after this, till today. And I think I want to keep it that way after today. And the only thing I pray every day is that I don't have to do it again.
Ramirez said something to me that I will never forget. This was about more than victim notifications for him. Many of the victims were Puerto Rican, like him, and he wanted to be there for them so they could be with someone who understood their questions and their culture. Reporting from the studio, Darlene Jones, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Unbelievable. And, these are veterans, seasoned agents, and I'm sure in their career they never fathomed that they would have to deal with something of the magnitude of Pulse.
Notifying the next of kin, just how painful, obviously, receiving that news and delivering it as well. Early this morning, crowds of people gathered out at the Pulse nightclub to remember those lives that were taken and to reflect on the night that everything changed for them and for all of us.
Family and friends of those victims were given access to actually go behind the fence at 2 this morning to take a pause and remember those that lost their lives.
They're not alone. This community is behind them. They're here to be supportive, and whatever we can do to get them whatever they need, we are going to heal, and we're going to come back stronger, because that's what the 49 plus 2 would want us to do.
The private ceremony happened as 49 angels surrounded the memorial outside of that fence, and the names of the 49 lost were read aloud one by one. This morning's ceremony is just the first of several happening in the city today, with thousands of people expected to gather tonight at Lake Eola for a vigil honoring both the victims as well as the survivors. And Greg, you and I have been out here for part of the afternoon, and we have seen the crowds build around here at Lake Eola, and the rain is now coming down, but the rain is not stopping people from coming out here.
And those angels will be here tonight. They're just feet away from us, preparing for what will be a very emotional night. And covering that for us down on the ground here at Lake Eola, Channel 9 anchor George Estevez and Nancy Alvarez. And guys, this will be a tough night, especially for the Latin community. Let's talk about that perspective from both of you.
It certainly will, Greg. You know, we have made it a point to always remind people whenever we do anything about Pulse that it was Latin night.
Very important, because those souls were out dancing, bailando, as Nancy and I like to say, and celebrating life. Maybe they had a hard day at work. Maybe they had a hard week. Maybe they had a fight with a loved one. And they were there to try to forget about all that. So the fact that it happened there, even though it took our entire community by storm, it did affect them. And you know what? The LGBTQ community embraced it. Everyone at home embraced it. We were all the same. It didn't matter color, creed, sexual orientation. But the Hispanic community, it was a little hard for them to wrap their arms around what happened at Pulse. And here's an example of why.
Coming out was tough for Luis.
I felt like I was disappointing her.
He had a religious Hispanic upbringing.
I'm her only child. And the first words that she said is like, I'm not gonna have a grandbaby.
Luis Roldan was outside of Pulse when the shooting started.
I was the one that was watching all the bodies, all the blood, everyone screaming.
It changed his life and also his relationship with his mother.
After Pulse, me and my mom actually became really, really close.
It's unbelievable to see so many people get together for such a pure cause.
A week later, 50,000 people united for a vigil at Lake Eola.
Gay community, we have to stick together. We will not be defeated.
Yet only a couple hundred attended a Spanish language vigil a week later, organized by Diana Bolivar.
There was no reason to not have that lawn completely covered with Latinos like we do for festivals.
But Dr. Monica Oganis explains why some Latinos have a harder time overcoming their upbringing.
We keep our identity. We still keep where we came from. And where we came from, it's still not okay to be part of the LGBTQ community.
She claims denial helps with the hurt parents may feel.
I have a son. I have a daughter that is LGBTQ, you know, different sexual orientation. That is something I need to protect, so I'd rather stay away.
And while observers feel a larger portion of the Latino community chose not to publicly come out and show support, some did privately, like Luis's mom.
I'm talking about my mom. Let's just call me right now.
Who chimed in during our interview.
I feel much comfortable when this happened because everybody's kind of worried about everybody, and it was an opportunity to me to tell a lot of people that my son was there and he's gay.
This was such an important story to do for our community, para nuestra comunidad, George. Yes. And as your friend, I know that it was personal for you.
Yeah, as a member of the LGBTQ community and as a person who had to tell his parents 10, 11, 12 years ago now and come out. And I got to tell you, the relationship with my mom is still rocky. It's there. And I haven't spoken to my dad in about 11 years. So, you know, it's a personal thing, but every family's different, and for Luis, his mom was there, and hopefully the 1 year mark after Pulse will allow other people to feel the same and embrace and hug, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we're all in this together. It doesn't matter what your sexual orientation, color, or creed is, so hopefully that will be what happens tonight.
And those conversations, that understanding, and that love is just one of the good things that will come out of this horrific tragedy that happened in our community.
Let's hope so. Thank you, Nancy.
Back to you guys.
Well said, George and Nancy, and really we are in this together. And I just had a friend of mine text me as we're live on the air, and she said she just happened to go into Starbucks today talking about, I call it spreading love and kindness. That's kind of my hashtag. But she walked into Starbucks and they had roses waiting, and they said, take a rose, together we can rise by lifting one another, together we can work to share love, together we can all begin to be kinder to one another, together we can share a smile. And they had roses there, so they would hope that you would take a rose and pass it on to someone else, and hashtag be good to one another.
A community of inclusion and diversity, and in a community that I've lived here for 31 years, I personally could not be more proud of. Now, depending on where you are, you mentioned that with the flowers today at Starbucks, people throughout Central Florida have come up with creative ways to honor the lives that were lost.
And our Channel 9 photojournalist Phil Mangles went around town today meeting our neighbors and seeing the touching personal tributes that they put together.
Excuse me, do you want a cookie?
I just wanted to show him that just a little gesture of kindness can really brighten a person's day.
You're awesome.
And we like to make people happy.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we've gotten a smile from every single person who's taken one. Have a wonderful day.
It's Orlando United Day.
I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up.
I remember waking up that day and just kind of reading the news.
Couldn't believe that was happening here.
And I'll rise up.
It's been a year, and I wasn't able to go down there until now because of crying all the time.
I work with people who had friends there that night, and the looks on their faces, I will never, ever forget those looks.
Yeah, because, you know, it's overwhelming. You never forget.
For kindness, you know, we're here because of a really terrible tragedy, but it can be turned around into something wonderful that can just make the community a whole lot stronger. He moves fast.
Do you want a cookie?
Oh, sweetheart, thank you. It's an important day for Orlando, and I want to make sure that he understands how important this is, and just to be a good person and be good to people.
You are lovely.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Yeah, we have to have that. You know, love will always conquer hate.
Hello.
You are looking live again at the band shell at Lake Eola, where Orlando residents continue to remember and reflect on the year that has gone by since the Pulse terror attack. We'll resume our special coverage of this first anniversary in just a moment. We do have some other major news to update you on this afternoon. A disturbing story is coming out of Malabar right now in Brevard County.
Investigators now say a family was murdered inside a home that was then set on fire. Channel 9's Melanie Holt has been following the details of this case. Mel, investigators believe another relative from inside the home may have taken off in a boat and is presumed dead.
And he is the suspect. Right now, the Coast Guard is actively searching for Tony Hughes. His boat was found about 7 miles off of Sebastian Inlet with no one aboard. And now deputies believe that he's responsible for the death of his wife, his stepson, and his sister-in-law before taking his own life. This afternoon, investigators were back at a Malabar home on Atz Road where they found the remains of a third homicide victim at this burned-out residence. Yesterday morning, firefighters were called out to the residence where they found a woman's body, but the flames were so intense they were forced to back out until late last night.
And they found what they believed to be the remains of a child.
Deputies believe that child is 9-year-old Sebastian Meacham, and investigators believe he, his mother Chrissy Hughes, and his aunt Linda Woods, who was visiting, were all killed by Tony Hughes before he set his 2-story home on fire. The sheriff's office believes Hughes then drove his boat to nearby Christensen's Landing, where he navigated a few miles offshore and took his own life.
That's horrible. It just sends chills through me to think that anybody would do anything like that to anybody, let alone a young child.
The sheriff's office tells us it will likely take days to positively identify the 3 victims, and the U.S. Coast Guard is still actively searching for Tony Hughes' body.
It's a terrible thing. I would hate to be a parent or relative of this child and have this news delivered to me that my relative died in this manner.
The sheriff's office told me there was nothing that indicated something like this might happen. 9-year-old Sebastian Meacham's dad lives out of state and was notified today that his son was the likely victim of this murder-suicide, at least one of them. Live here in Malabar, Melanie Holt, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Horrible story. A woman was forced out of her home today when a sinkhole opened up in the Villages. The hole formed underneath this home along Abercrombie Way. Emergency crews taped off the home, put up signs to warn people to stay away. It's one of actually several in the area. 2 more holes opened up about 5 miles away. A couple of feet away, this sinkhole formed on the Glenville Championship Golf Course. Today's evacuation is the only one so far, though.
They checked the land real good in that, and they just said precaution until the engineers can come out and evaluate it.
And over the weekend in Ocala, this 20 by 20 hole opened up in a shopping plaza. The car went right down in the hole. Look at that. Our meteorologists say heavy rain is causing these holes, and we could see more because look at the water out there in that parking lot.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the time of year going from the dry season to the wet season. We start raising and lowering the water tables. Speaking of rain, it's coming down in downtown. We've kept the lightning at
That's
bay,
a big
though.
issue.
That is a big one. We're still watching, though. Right now, the showers, you can actually see the rain falling there. Looking from our SunTrust perspective down on the Orlando band shell, lots of umbrellas, few ponchos, and that is what Early Warning Doppler 9 shows. The good news is that the lightning has been very low here near Metro Orlando. It's kind of around the edges, if you will. A couple lightning strikes, but generally speaking, we're just getting a good soaking rain. What's happening? The East Coast sea breeze kind of is moving the storms to the west, but the upper level winds are blowing back from the west. So we're getting the rain developing, kind of getting sloshed back in toward Metro Orlando, where we have some light showers right now, including right at the Pulse Memorial, all the way up through Lake Eola, where everybody's gathering here tonight. So just plan on a wet evening till around at least 7 to 8 o'clock tonight. It's going to take a while to get these showers to move on through Oakland over toward Claremont, and that's where we've had some of the lightning. Still some heavy rain on the east side of Oviedo, but generally speaking, future track keeps the worst of the weather moving through, but still by 8:45, we're still kind of dodging some of these light showers. And for tomorrow, once again, we'll start out mostly cloudy, highs in the mid to upper 80s. The warmest we'll get tomorrow. By 2 p.m., the sea breeze moves inland, so the beach will quiet down. We'll get these scattered storms developing, though, moving toward the west coast. But again, after the sea breeze collision, we may actually back in a little rainfall tomorrow evening through 10 p.m. So this is pretty common stuff for the wet season, as our sea breeze and some of the upper level winds sometimes go in different directions, so the rain kind of shifts around. Here's your 5-day forecast. Weekend always in view. 60% rain coverage across the area for tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We don't really have any huge weather changes coming up, except we are firmly in our wet season pattern, including perhaps a little bit of a less rainfall for the weekend, but still scattered storms and warming up a bit also through Sunday.
Orlando is very important to its newest professional sports team.
We are an inclusive club that we welcome everyone.
Next, see what Orlando City is doing to stay connected to its community during this difficult time. Our special live presentation of Pulse 1 year later returns in 3 minutes.
You are looking live right now at Orlando City Soccer Stadium, where the team opened its doors special today so fans could visit the 49 memorial seats that are dedicated to Pulse. There are those seats now. They felt as though maybe people would want to come by, sit in those seats, and reflect on what happened 1 year ago today, Martha.
And Channel 9 sports anchor Joe Kepner looked at all the other things that the team has tried to do to help unite the community after the attack and how they've helped Orlando heal since then.
After the attack at Pulse nightclub, Orlando City saw their next game as an opportunity to honor the people who died and give the community a place to rally together as Orlando united.
All You Need Is Love was the song that played as the teams entered the field. Pulse survivors, families, and first responders all honored at midfield in the first major event in Orlando after the shooting. And the tributes didn't stop there. 49 seats were left open with balloons symbolizing the place in our community always to be occupied by those we lost. And in the 49th minute of the game, the first time an MLS match was stopped for an extended moment of silence. Orlando City did not win that night. The game ended in a draw with exhausted players disappointed they couldn't deliver a victory for the city.
After the game, I praised them for their efforts. Couldn't fault them for their willingness and their desire to win the game. You could see by their reaction at the end of the whistle how much this game meant to them.
But the Pulse tributes did not end with the final whistle. The Orlando City Soccer Club installed 49 rainbow-colored seats in Section 12, visible from anywhere in their new stadium.
Every time I see those seats, it's a reminder to everyone, not necessarily of what happened, but also that we are an inclusive club, that we welcome everyone.
Kay Rollins runs the Orlando City Foundation, which has also partnered with the City of Orlando and the Act, Love, Give initiative, encouraging people to get involved through acts of kindness with ideas that came from the Pulse families.
This is a safe place as well. It really is now. I know that sounds strange after Pulse, but we've come together in a way that I think no one could imagine, and people all over the world talk about Orlando now in very different way, and I'm proud of that.
June 12th was a night that changed Orlando, but not in the way the attacker had hoped. It brought the community closer together, and these 49 rainbow-colored seats at Orlando City Stadium are a lasting reminder to the world that love is the greatest response to fear. Joe Kepner, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
We have seen that before, how sports can help heal a community after 9/11. The Yankees held a game and it was very emotional. I was at that game with Orlando City and it was goosebumps all over your body.
And walking the streets here when we came here to go live, I think we also got goosebumps. All the people coming together, everyone in their Orlando United shirts, everyone in rainbow colors, also in their purple short shirts as being Orlando strong. And there's going to be a special ceremony here at the band shell Lake Eola. We're going to be here live, and we're going to have a special anniversary right here of the Pulse terror attack 1 year later, coming up at 6.